Hey folks, Joe Valley here. Thanks for joining me on another episode of the Quiet Life Podcast. Before we introduce our guest today, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Niche Pursuits. Niche, everybody pronounces that different. Let's just go with, I'm trying to be fancy right now, and y'all know that I'm not fancy. It's Niche Pursuits, all right? I'm from Maine. That's how I pronounce it. Our friends over there introduced us to Cole Humphus, who we've got as a guest today. If you own a content site and you want to grow it and you want to get really niche down, go over to nichepursuits.com. They've got a great podcast as well. So I just gave away our guest name, Cole Humphus. He's an entrepreneur, has built, bought, and sold multiple businesses, and seems to know all of the people that I know in the industry. So welcome to the podcast, Cole. Good to have you here.
Thanks a bunch, Joe. I'm really excited to be here.
I think you know some of these folks better than I do. I've been around a lot of the folks that I see that are commenting on your LinkedIn profile and whatnot, but you've been on stage with many more of them than I have. But enough of that. Let's talk about a little bit about your background. We were just chatting about Cole's Classroom that you built starting in 2012, and then you got kind of tired of it over the years, trying to figure out what you could do. So give us a little bit of background about yourself and what you do.
Yeah. So you're right. My sort of first soiree, I guess, into online business and websites and brand building was a site that I made called Cole's Classroom. It was photography education. I was inspired to do that site after let me just start by interjecting. I have a corporate finance background. So the furthest thing from photography. And while I was in corporate finance, I decided on a whim to teach myself photography so I can earn some extra money doing weddings alongside of my 9 to 5 day job. So now that you have that context, that's how the whole photography.
You were a wedding photographer?
Yeah.
So I'm looking, you worked for General Atomics Aeronautical Systems. I mean, talk about geeking out. That's so far from being a wedding photographer.
You must be on my LinkedIn profile, which I don't really touch. So if you see the LinkedIn profile, you'll probably see like the old LinkedIn, and then okay, I should actually try and beef this thing up to modern day. But anyways, I was in contract or defense contracting industry doing cost proposal analysis. So I became really good and geeky with spreadsheets, which ended up serving me very, very well for growing Cole's Classroom, by the way. So long story short, Cole's Classroom was really my idea to basically teach people online the things that I was having a hard time finding online at the time when I was coming up the ranks as a wedding photographer. And essentially what that really meant was there was a lot of pro level people that were very anti any newbie coming into the field. Right. So my whole thesis for Cole's Classroom is hey, everyone's welcome. I'm out here doing it. Let me show you the ropes too. And, I don't want to dominate the podcast. So I'll just simply say with the background, I'll simply just say it was a slow start. I wanted to quit 3 different times in the first year because I'm I don't even have time to try and build this online thing. It was the show of Cole. There was no outsourced content writing. There was no outsourced video. It was me doing everything. And I got I caught a couple breaks with SEO where a couple articles started taking off, and it wasn't a viral kind of takeoff. It was people actually coming to the site now. And then that's what led me to create my first course. And that led to the first $100,000 I made in the first year that I monetized. And then at that point I was maybe we should quit all the other things we're doing and just focus on this. We did. My goal was to double it that year, and instead we went to 1.5 million, and we continued to double it for 2.5 years after that before selling in 2019.
What advertising platforms, if any, did you use to grow the business?
Oh yeah, great question. And yes, I don't think you can really have 10x growth like that in 1 year without using ads. And back then it was all Facebook and Instagram, and Google ads are great. I've been totally digging into Google ads now, but with Google ads and I mean Google search, you're always going to be limited to the volume of people searching for the thing that you're going after. So if you're doing a supplement business, you probably don't have an issue with not enough people searching for turmeric or collagen peptides or whatever. But if you're even for me with photography, especially back to this niche word, and I say niche too. I don't like the niche, that's just weird. But, any kind of niche keyword thing, like a lot of times we were running out of scale. So we had no choice but to really leverage Facebook and Instagram.
Would you feel the same about Facebook and Instagram today that you did back in 14, 15, 16 when you were doing this?
I can't stand Facebook now.
Yeah.
But I will say, I think the biggest difference is, well, that's like, this opens up so many great avenues for this podcast. So I'm going to sort of just give a high level view of, because this is so near and dear to my heart since I now actively work with so many other businesses. And the landscape has changed so much. So I think the biggest difference is the way I explain it to people is back then, and I saw this coming. That was one of the reasons why I wanted to sell the company, by the way. This trend didn't just happen overnight. But the difference between back then and now is back then, there was a lot of people that were able to utilize just one platform or even just have one sales funnel or one even product. And if you were half good at all of marketing, there was a good chance that the advertising cost was cheap enough that even if you weren't like a marketing expert, if your webinar was just like good enough, and if your price point was like big enough, then you probably had a profitable thing that you could simply, and if you were, unfortunately for others, they aren't as good at math as I am. But if you understood the metrics, you can say, hey, I'm buying traffic cheaper than how much my people are worth. Bada bing, bada boom, let's go and start spending more on ads. So there's still a lot of things that you had to know in order to be successful. But the difference is now is you don't have that ability to just be okay. Now the people that are winning, you have to be really good at advertising and really good at marketing and not only rely on one sales funnel and not just one product. And the reason why is simple. Now, as ad costs have gone up so much, your acquisition cost to get, whether it's a lead, let's start with a click. Your cost of clicks are gone up, your cost of leads have gone up, and therefore your cost of customers have gone up too. Therefore, your only option is to really get good at conversion rate optimization and really have the product suite and the back end offers to make your customers worth more money. So it's all about lifetime value of the customer now, which back then it wasn't really as needed.
Yeah, you were making money up front on these acquisitions. Yeah. I'm just looking at my notes. It looks like you spent, $2 million on Facebook, paid traffic. 90% of your revenue was from paid customer acquisition, doing $4.5 million in revenue and 40% profit margin, which is pretty substantial stuff.
Yeah.
What happened along the way there? Obviously, you quit your day job and you chose to focus on Cole's Classroom completely. For those out there listening that, hear that somebody's got a business that's growing like crazy, did you wake up and just say, I can't do this anymore, I want to move on? Why sell a business that's doing well as you are getting smarter? You know that the paid acquisition is getting more challenging, but you're getting better at it. And most people aren't. Why sell?
Well, on the last part of that question, which I really appreciate, it's, there gets to be a point with, especially when you are relying on paid advertising, it doesn't matter how good you are, because you're always going to be up against the auction cost anyways. So, and Facebook is
the auction cost. I'm not familiar with that.
So let's take Google, for example, you're actually bidding on certain keywords on Google search. So the price you're paying per click is based on the auction of all of the advertisers who are looking to bid on that same keyword. On Facebook, you aren't bidding on keywords, but you're still paying what's called a CPM, cost per 1,000 impressions. And as there's more advertisers in all the different niches and all the different verticals, that cost has steadily gone up. So essentially, for a business to be successful, which this is a great question you asked and a great piggyback on what we just talked about, in today's environment, it doesn't matter. You can be the best dang advertiser in the world, but your business model is still going to be the thing that can make or break you. Because let's take Cole's Classroom. Cole's Classroom was a low ticket business. I didn't have no $5,000 coaching program where it's like, hey, we're 3X on our money. So even if ad costs double, we're still good. We weren't good.
What was your average ticket?
Well, our average ticket across the board is probably $35.
Wow, that's
But
it.
that's it. But as a $49 a month program was our main core product. It wasn't always like that, but for the since 2016, that was the main product. And I got that to 10,000 paying members at our height.
Wow.
But in order to get people into that, we were literally running webinars. I mean, this is the crazy thing. I would spend at the height $4,000 or $5,000 a day on ads to get people onto a webinar, to literally get them to give me $1 just to try out just check it out. And most people would never be willing to do that and literally be upside down. But of course, I knew exactly when they would turn to profit, when I'd get my money back, and how much they were worth in the long term.
That's because you did math, right? You understood the lifetime value of a customer and the cost to acquire a customer.
And back then, I wasn't using Stripe. I was taking downloads and spreadsheets and doing all the formulas. So anyways, that's what I mean by, I think today, the people, especially if you're looking to sell the business, and I'm sure a lot of people listening are like dreaming about one day doing that, a couple of things come to mind. Number one, do it for yourself and for the potential exit. Diversify the revenue streams. Number one, like you just can't have only all of your sales coming from one place. And I know somebody who did that, me, and it's nothing that I would recommend doing. And there was a timeline to that. And that was one of the reasons why I'm like, okay, things are getting tougher. Margins are getting thinner. Let's figure out what to do here. So that's just one thing for people to remember. But to answer your question, Joe, I didn't really just wake up one day and think it's time to sell. I started the process because I honestly was just getting tired of teaching photography. So it wasn't, and at that time I had a team. So, I mean, I had a very scrappy team, and it wasn't a bunch of full-time people. We had great people, but it was very part-time. We were high agility, high touch, in a very cost-effective way. But still, I was still connected to it. Even I wasn't making the courses and the products anymore, but I was still connected to it. And I sort of was just over photography. So that was one thing. Number two, photography from a DSLR standpoint, which is what we were teaching, it's kind of a dying industry. I mean, so that's not a cool thing. Ad costs were only going up. Conversions were going down. I mean, at that point, when you advertise that hard, your offers start to get a little bit old.
Well, when you sold the business, was revenue trending up or down or slowing down? What was the situation? Because it sounds to me like everything you've said, that I, as a buyer, wouldn't pay a real big multiple for this business, but
yeah,
you were probably looking further out into the future. What was the revenue situation when you sold?
We were in our peak. We were absolutely just on fire. There was no signs per se of it going down. There were signs of the rate of growth starting to slow, given the advertising costs starting to go up. But the real reason why we were able to get a strong exit was because of the strategic potential. So we were acquired by a software company for photographers, and we had this monstrous volume of customers, hundreds of thousands of leads on our mailing list, which, by the way, I'm not saying that to say like more is always better. Like engagement is kind of crucial too. But we had eyeballs, we had traffic, right? Even if it wasn't all coming from SEO, we had people that ultimately could become customers for the software company. And instead of them paying a lot of, I don't want to give numbers away, but a lot of money to acquire a customer, now they have an opportunity to bolt us into the picture and get customers on an ongoing basis way, way, way cheaper.
Yeah. And that's all about strategic buyers, when it's just a good fit for them. And they're not just acquiring a job or buying the revenue or the discretionary earnings of the business with the hope of growing it and having another exit someday. They're acquiring it for what you built and the customer base and the email list and things of that nature. For those who don't know the difference, just out of curiosity, did you find them or did they find you?
Oh, that's such a great story. We sort of found each other. So the way it happened was, I'll make this short and sweet, but it is worth noting. I reached out to them. I was their number one affiliate. I reached out to them because I was I was already starting to think about helping other companies grow and invest in other companies in exchange, getting an equity piece, an advisory piece to help them grow. I reached out to them, got connected with the founder who I'd never dealt with before. And then that led to a few interviews. Essentially, all along, I was thinking, this is going good. Like, they're really digging what I've done, blah, blah. And then one day he said, we actually are in the final stages of raising a lot of capital ourselves, and we don't need any more money, but we'd actually be interested in buying Cole's Classroom because we're really impressed with what you did. So it was a complete whoa. I still remember the phone call, where I was. It was just and my defense went up. I was just internally oh shit. And then all of a sudden it set in. I'm like, oh, this could be good. And a few months later, we had an LOI.
That's perfect. Perfect. Yeah. Let's pivot a little bit. Because you built this not knowing that you had an eventual exit in mind, and then you just got tired of the industry, photography, teaching, and got a strategic exit, which is great. You've done a lot since then. And one of the things that you talk about a little bit, or that we talked offline, was about content creation and the challenge of it in some cases, and some of the things that people need to pivot to in the coming years. Let's talk about that a little bit, because I love content sites. All right. I love brokering content sites. They're full of profit margin, right? So, when we get a lead at Quiet Light and somebody says they're doing 2 million in revenue, we ballpark the initial value of the business with a lead based upon revenue, not on net income, because everyone gets their net income wrong. Businesses first not sold on net income, as you probably know at this point in your career. But, net income of a e-commerce business or FBA business, vastly different than that of a content business, right? And content, you're talking 80, 90% in many, many cases. And I know some people that have pivoted their FBA teachings to content teachings and developing content sites. It takes longer, and that's challenging. And a lot of people don't have the patience, just like you said. You almost gave up in the first couple of years, more than once, I'm sure. What do you see for content development changes, monetizing, things of that nature in the coming years?
Well, I think the biggest area of opportunity that I see is, there's a lot of people who are building outsourced teams and literally just churning and burning content sites based on niche SEO opportunity, right? And I mean, geez, there was one that I really was close to pulling the trigger on and buying in the golf space, and it was a pretty good looking asset, but I mean, it had gotten hit a couple times from Google algorithms, right? And I'm not an SEO, I understand it, but that's not my core competency. So that was a red flag. But then on top of that, even the content itself, it was so focused on buying guides, and obviously the reason why they're doing that is their main monetization path is Amazon affiliate revenue. So, best golf clubs, best golf balls, best golf bags for women, whatever. Right. So I think that's okay, just to play the website flipping kind of game. But I think where people are really missing the mark is, if you already got the traffic, let's go ahead and create an actual course. And instead of just being okay with collecting your 2 or 3% from Amazon affiliates, maybe you can start collecting 100% on some of your own courses and start taking the niche SEO traffic and turning it into a actual brand. There's so I guess the short answer.
It's interesting. I mean, Ewan Finzer is a guy that you got to get connected with Ewan at some point. But he's creating websites on Blue Velvet couches, getting very, very niche.
Sure.
Literally raised funds, launched, I don't know, 25 new content sites. I had him on the podcast a couple of months ago. He's from North Carolina, part of Rhodium Weekend, good guy. And he's, building these sites, writing 100 articles, launching them, and
Sure.
so on and so forth, and monetizing them in the standard traditional ways. Yeah. Now, obviously, there are some sites that you cannot create a course on, right?
For sure.
I wonder, though, I'm thinking about all the cooking sites that we sold last year in 2021. That'd probably be the 20 or $30 million in content sites that we sold. I guess most of them were, I'd say at least 50% for some reason or another. Actually, I know why. It's because of Food Blogger Pro and those folks over there. It's all about the cooking sites and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. How would you create a course on something like that?
Well, it doesn't have to be a course, right? That's just one option, right? So cooking, just think of all the different digital monetization strategies or paths that somebody could take. It could be a course. It could be an association / paid community / membership, right? And I say association and community because first and foremost, let's just all really get clear and accept that humans by nature want to be around other humans. Like community online is a very underappreciated avenue. Like Cole's Classroom's number one asset, what became our community. Let's put it this way. People want to hang out with people like them, right? Maybe it's shared interests, shared hobbies, whatever. There's a reason I'm wearing my fishing shirt. That's all I do now. I go saltwater fishing. So people wear t-shirts that they can identify with. And it's sort of like a stamp of like, I'm a fisherman, or golf people. I play golf, right? So there's so much opportunity. It could be e-commerce, right? So if I have a cooking site, instead of just what I would do is, let's say the bulk of my revenue is these 5 products. Maybe it's like an air fryer is probably not the best example, but let's say it's this really cool cutting board. And then I got an air fryer over here, and you get the idea. Well, instead of just being an affiliate, maybe you should just go and start thinking about building your own line of cooking boards or cooking knives or cutlery, right? Look at Sam, the cooking guy. Like, I always watch him on YouTube. He has the YouTube channel is his media. That's his audience base, but he's selling t-shirts and he's selling, here's our steak knife, and here's our this, and here's our that. So it's not just digital products. It's just taking the traffic and saying, what are they already coming here for? And how can I get a bigger piece of the pie?
It's interesting. So, people get into the content space because they don't like the working capital requirements of e-commerce. But once they get a content site that's up and running and generating, like I just talked to somebody last week down in Australia, bought a food-related site for, I think, $2,000. And now it's doing $35,000 a month in revenue, 90% margins. So she's making tremendous money. But your suggestion is that she could be making much higher margins if she had selling her own product.
100%.
Yeah.
That's how I made my first product. Just so everyone knows, earlier in the story, I said I was thinking about quitting, and then I got a couple of quick hits or some success with SEO. The first thing that happened was I started seeing people coming in for one of our tutorials, which was a free tutorial on newborn photography. It was literally like 10 newborn photography tips. Well, if you remember from earlier, I did wedding photography, not newborn. I actually had somebody else, a friend that I knew, who wrote that newborn tutorial. So all of a sudden, I woke up one day and I'm like, whoa, we're getting a couple hundred people visiting the site every day for newborn photography. Hey, maybe that's where we should make our first course. And the cool thing here, though, is they came for a free article, but they were interested in newborn photography, and I knew it from Google Analytics. And therefore, that's where we made our first course. And that was a very easy $10,000 in just the first month.
How difficult is it to make a course like that? How long was it? What did you use? What were the challenges? Kind of thing.
It's not hard. It's as hard as people want to make it. Like, that's such a great question, Joe, because, one of the reasons why we at Cole's Classroom became as successful as we did is because we were not perfectionists, and we were so agile, and we would wake up with ideas and we would actually try them and not have all these reasons why we couldn't do them. So to answer your question, on that first course, I literally met up with her for a drink. I told her, I said, hey, would you want to go in and now make a course for me? Because you wrote the article. Do you want to make a course? Yep. We met up, and right there at over happy hour or dinner or whatever it was, we started outlining out what the course would be. I mean, just high level stuff, right? I mean, the SEO people who are making these content sites are already doing it. I mean, to rank number one on these competitive terms, you're already doing it. If you have a big pillar post and it's like, how to, I'm no golfer, but everything you need to know about golfing for beginners. Great. You probably already have all the right headers and all. Google's already telling you all the shit you need. Mm-hmm. Just go and now make videos for it. And then now you have a course. It's that simple. You just got to then know how to sell it, which of course, you're going to build your sales page. And that's where the marketing skill set comes into play, right? Like, but
you couldn't just use the traffic. You're getting the traffic to that page anyway. Wouldn't you just put links to the course in it? And of course, the link would go to a sales page that would talk about it because it's a much higher ticket.
That's exactly how we did it. Yep. Right there in the free article. It's like, hey, you want to really learn how to become a great newborn photographer? Check out our course right here. Just links right out to it.
And you're doing that now at Rapid Scale Group, right? You're teaching people how to create courses and market them and things of that nature.
Not necessarily. I mean, I'm actually working in people's businesses, both from strategy and to some extent implementation. So yeah, I'm not teaching with a course. I am actually working with as a consultant. Yeah.
Course founders, people that want to grow their course businesses. Is it just courses that they're course creators, or other things that they're doing as well that you're helping them with?
Yeah, great question. I mean, obviously I come from the digital background, but I have a handful of clients stemming, going across from software to B2B services to content and info products. So, a lot of it, once again, remember what we were saying earlier, the difference between then and now is back then, people didn't have to be an expert in every discipline of digital marketing. Today, if you want to grow, and if you don't want to just be one of those people who just sits and waits and hopes that the business grows a little bit every month or day or week, you got to be very savvy. And there's a big disconnect with companies that want to grow and realize that they have the need, but don't have the budget to hire a quote team. And by the way, I say it like that because I don't think you should have a big team. I don't think you need a big team. That's the whole point of Rapid Scale Group is you can be very dangerous and very cost effective. And I mean, dangerous in a good way. So that's how we help. And by we, it's really just me. So it's sort of my passion project.
It's interesting. So yeah, I guess you just answered the question because it's a passion project, but you're in a position with knowledge and experience to create another business with recurring revenue and help a wide scale of people. Instead, you're choosing to consult with a much smaller group of people. Talk to me about the personal reasons for that, right? You've been through the large scale. Why consult versus build something that's subscription based?
Great question. Right now, this is the best way the easiest way to say it, and as succinctly as possible, is this isn't the first thing I've tried since exiting the business. I'll just say that, and I'll explain some of the other things in a moment and why I sort of put a kibosh to them and what I've learned. But this was a result from pivoting courses, a course launch I did that turned to coaching, that then turned to services. So that's one piece of the puzzle. But the other piece is I'm kind of able to live the semi-retired life now. And what I mean by that is, as we talked before going live, I mean, I got a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old girl, and those are absolutely a big priority of my life. I also have a recently retired dad who likes to go fishing. We grew up fishing together. A year and a half ago, I bought a nice saltwater fishing boat. We live here in San Diego. And when the fish are biting, we're out there fishing. So that being said, there's another massive sliver of my life that is related to growing businesses. And in particular, it's not only limited to marketing, but just that entrepreneurial spirit combined with my digital marketing background and skills and all of that stuff that for a long time I was suppressing. I was only in parent mode. Not only, but you know what I mean? There wasn't any entrepreneurial like avenue or channel for me. And I realized I needed that. So I needed to do something because I was still waking up thinking about it. And I just had no one to help and no one to share it with. So the consulting right now, it is a very lucrative way for me to get paid very good money for not a tremendous amount of time. I don't want another full-time job yet or ever, to be honest. When I go and acquire my next business, I'm not going to be the operator. Been there, done that, right? I'm going to acquire a business, and I'm always looking, by the way. That's why I'm so familiar with Quiet Light, which is my first place I go to look. But I haven't found the right property yet. I haven't found the right business that's where I'm going to go all in on that. So
what's the ideal property or business that you want to buy?
It is tough. And I'm only paused because depending on like every 6 months, I kind of change my criteria for different reasons. And I guess I'll give a quick overview of them. I love still the idea of content sites because there's almost every single one is under monetized. All of them. Mm-hmm. All of them they're built, they get traffic for quote free. Obviously it wasn't free, it took a lot of time, but they get free organic traffic. And then they just are getting just the tiniest bit of money. And I know for me, it's like, I know exactly what I would do with that. Let me do everything we just talked about. So I still like content sites, but I haven't really been focusing on them because a lot of them don't have any team at all. They might have outsourced content writers, but
right.
So you
don't want to take it on and operate it. You need that team.
I mean, if there's enough money, I'm happy to, because then I'd instantly put people in place. So content, that's my thoughts on content sites for me. I think they're great for people who just want to buy them and just hold them and hope for the best. But I want to take it and build it into a nice big brand that then we can sell for a lot more money. E-commerce, I like, as long as it's not FBA, because I want to control the customer journey. So if it's e-commerce through Shopify and those kind of platforms, I like that. The thing that scares me with e-commerce is ad costs are going to continue to go up. And now, as we're seeing in this hyperinflation environment we're in with now here in San Diego, gas is already at $6 a gallon. It's not just, going to be on commodities like gas. It's going to continue to be with labor force. And so profit margins worry me a little bit on e-com. I think there's a lot of opportunity for e-com companies to go from a few 100,000 to like a couple million, even 3 million, without much worry and concern for major infrastructure costs and investment. But to take something from 2 million in top line to like 10 and 15, that's what I want. But I'm also a little bit afraid of the headache factor and the number of things and people to manage. So that leaves us with SaaS. And I'm very interested, and I have a handful of people I've been talking to that have some softwares yeah.
Well, we may have a SaaS business in the photography niche.
Well, don't know if I can even touch that one, but
right, you have a non-compete.
But you can give me a little bit of details, and then we'll decide.
Yeah, it's not ready yet, and we just had a call with them this morning, and it may be
sure.
The advice might be to hold off another 3 or 4 months, but we'll see. We'll see. Awesome.
So there's things I like about all of it. I mean, that's the short answer. There's things, and let me leave you with this too. Not leave you. I don't know if we're done or not, but rather leave the audience, whoever's listening. In my opinion, for anyone who's like the ultra aspirational, like I want to build something big, I think the real name of the game is to have all of these things into one. Meaning the content site that feeds the e-commerce brand that then not every niche, but some may also have a software opportunity too. So then you get the cheaper traffic and the cheaper customer acquisition, but then you get the benefit of the lifetime value from recurring revenue from the software. then maybe now if the bulk of your revenue you can get on the software, now you can trade on a revenue multiple, not EBITDA or SDE. And now you built something crazy
valuable,
attractive.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you've been through a lot, man. Building, exiting. Now you're in a great position to go fishing as often as you want and do what every father wants to, which is spend as much time with their kids as possible. In terms of what you've seen and the people that you've connected with and the people you consult with that are, let's say, in the e-commerce space, and this is it's hard for them to know it going in and in the early stages of a business, but what is it that, in your view, causes people to wake up and decide to sell when they're exhausted, worn out, emotionally toast? What are they doing wrong in their business that totally drains their energy and their profits? What can they pivot to, and what advice would you give somebody that's in that position now, or just creeping into that position and they don't even know it yet?
Oh man, I love that question because it's been the most eye-opening for me as I've launched Rapid Scale Group and I'm actually working in people's businesses. And it shed light on what we ended up doing really good at Cole's Classroom that I didn't really realize was different than how most people operate. And a couple things come to mind. Number one, a lot of people fall into the trap when they're growing that they need to build team. They just instantly go into team building mode. It's like, oh, we need to grow. We need marketing. Let's go and find a digital marketer who can run ads. Oh, we need a copywriter. Let's go hire a copywriter. Let's go find an email marketer. Let's go find a funnel builder. And there goes your profit, right? And the worst part is you are not a digital marketer. So if you aren't a marketer and you're hiring these people, you have no idea if they're even any good. You can't effectively manage them. They could be giving you shit work and you have no idea. Right. So that was the main thesis for why I started Rapid Scale Group was if you don't already have the skill, then it's even hard for you to manage. And it's not only not as cost effective, but the bigger thing is it becomes a time suck. It just drains you when you start to manage so many people. So I think team building is the area that people get so trapped into. And I think some people feel that like, it's almost like this badge of honor. Like, well, I got a team. Like,
oh yeah.
Okay, cool.
I hear people brag about it.
Exactly.
Other companies, our competitors. It's funny because I feel like you're talking to our CMO, Chris Moore, right now, because Chris is in meetings all day long and we're trying to cut that in half because he's got people to talk to in teams and outside consultants to manage.
It's exponential how much more time it takes when you go from having like 3 people to like 5 and then like from 5 to 10. It's just like, and then what happens is then companies end up having to build, okay, we just need more process. We need more SOPs, more process to follow, and then everything will be better. No, because then what happens is you're spending so much time managing the process and people are spending time making these reports. You're spending time reviewing the reports. So that's a longer way of saying all of that can be sidestepped if you just simply know what area in the business to put all of your energy into. So the easiest thing that people need to do is to just take a step back and be like, what is this thing that I'm focused on even a needle mover? Is this project that I'm working on even going to move the needle, whether it's profit, maybe it's top line revenue you're trying to move, maybe it's profit. You can't really prioritize both, by the way. Maybe it's growth. Maybe it's we're going to focus on SEO and not paid. But too many people right now, in short, are trying to do all the things. You can't do all the things. You can't prioritize all the things. Trust me, I know. I'm trying to be a great dad, a great husband. You know what I mean? Like
so that's exhausting. All of it, really. I mean, if you're trying to, and I'll speak from personal experience, right? Quiet Light has grown 55% a year over the last 4 years. We grew 85% last year. If you look back, even just 3 years ago, I think we might have had 5 advisors, maybe 6 or 7. I can't recall exactly, but now we have 15 advisors, entrepreneur termed advisors. You know what is required when we have that many advisors? Support staff. Mm-hmm. We have a CMO who's got, 8, 9, 10 different VAs and consultants and now employees. And then we've got the email marketing company, the SEO company, this one, that one. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And if most entrepreneurs that are out there listening are like me and like Mark, one of our biggest weaknesses is managing people. Yet here we are. Yours too. We're growing like crazy, which means we think we need more people, which, leads to putting ourselves in a position of not loving what we do anymore. It's kind of a weird little thing. I don't do it. Look, I'm a man without a title. Mark's the CEO. I get to do whatever I want to do, which is great, under the radar. I don't manage anybody.
One quick thing on that. I think that is a great exercise that anyone listening, and I'm sure, Joe, you've probably done something similar, but, I got to that point too, right? When you're growing and you it's not to say you can't do it, you should do it by yourself. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is be very intentional with where you spend your time. Be very intentional with who you really need on the team, and that in and of it, and be okay with saying no. So the whole idea of like, we need to grow the business, we need to do everything. No, you don't. I never gave a rat's behind about our YouTube channel or Instagram, because we were focused on, and we knew what we did good, and we knew what moved the needle, and we did that very well. And that was enough to take us from $100,000 in a year to $4.5 million in a year in a nice exit. Now, one exercise is that I did myself, and I have all my, I had all my students do as well when I was coaching, was you take a sheet of paper out. This is a team for hiring. Take a sheet of paper out and draw a vertical and a horizontal line. So you have 4 quadrants. And I would literally write on there things I am good at in one quadrant, things I'm bad at in the next, things I love doing, and things I hate doing. And you start putting all the things that you're doing, okay, into those buckets. And when you're done, you're going to look at it. You're going to be like, okay, all the things I'm not good at and things I don't enjoy, let me find somebody to do that. And what that lets you do is it lets you actually still do stuff that others might tell you you're silly to do and you should hire it out. But if you actually enjoy it, or you're the best person for the job, then do it. And for me, what that looked like was I had somebody who actually managed the ads, but I was still in charge of all the metrics. I was still managing and our lifetime value and doing all that spreadsheet stuff.
Because you liked it.
Good at it, and I loved it.
Yeah.
So that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, it's a good point. In our situation, Mark loves the culture that we've built at Quiet Light. So he is at this point really focused on having conversations with the team, having Zoom calls with the team and doing presentations and discussions on certain topics and whatnot. I love the connecting, building relationships like this with outside folks. There's so many other things that we both do, or have done, I should say, over the years that were in those other quadrants that we didn't really love doing and weren't really good at. And we have, and it has required us to build a bit of a team to do that, right? So all the stuff that Chris does, it's so detailed. I would fail at it because I hate it, right? Yeah. It's just not my skill set. The stuff that I do, Mark has no desire to do whatsoever. He doesn't enjoy that part of it. And look, I built the team, right? I hired every advisor that we had for the most part, up until, the recent 4 or 5 when Jason and Chuck stepped up and mentored everybody. So we all have to figure that out. And some of it comes with experience, Cole. Like, you've been there, you've done that. So have I. But those that have not should go through that exercise. And as we tell our kids, look, we made the mistakes. Just listen to a few of them that we made and try to learn from us and go through that exercise. Listen and learn from those that have gone before you instead of just trying to figure it out on your own. So I think it's great stuff that you've shared here. How do people reach you? I know that your consulting business is minimal, right? You want to go fishing, spend time with the kids. How do they learn more about you, connect with you if they want to, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, rapidscalegroup.com. That's the best place. And by all means, whether it's just to say hello, I'd love to hear from anyone who got any nuggets from this. So even if you have zero desire to work with me, that's okay. If you just want to say what's up, I'd love that. And if you do, think I can help you, then also reach out, because I'll tell you straight up if I can or I can't. Other than that, on Facebook, people can find me. Don't really go to LinkedIn because I never log in there. So I'd hate for you to think I'm ignoring you. I probably just never, ever will get the message. But on Facebook, I will, or rapidscalesgroup.com.
All right. Sounds good. Cole Humphus, thanks for your time today. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.